Of all the first courses on Gordon's menu, some of the most acclaimed are his terrines. These tiny masterpieces are explosions of flavour, innovative combinations of the finest ingredients, complementing one another to stunning effect. Today, Gordon's making a terrine of foie gras, ham and tongue.
This is the ham hock, which was soaked yesterday in water, cold water, and cooked off in fresh water this morning. It's naturally salty, so therefore, by running them under cold water, we're extracting the salt from them. And so when they eventually cook, they don't become salty. We cook them off for about an hour and a half with a large bocagani, whole vegetables, and that's where we make our brine from. So all the gelatinous strength comes from the skin, the bones, and we use that to help set the terrine. Once it's actually cooked, the centre bone will naturally fall away and the ham will just ease off the side. We then remove the outside layer of fat and we position this and we start to layer it in the terrine like so. So each time, just pushing down with layers of ham and foie gras, and then this is the stock that we use to set it, and that's just the natural stock which we cook the ham in, set with how many litres of gelatine? 2 litres. We're using a few litres of gelatine per litre. Sometimes we reduce the stock down whereby we don't actually need any gelatine, it's set naturally, and today the actual stock is quite weak, so therefore we need to add 2 or 3 litres of gelatine per litre. So that's like so. After the ham, we've got a layer of tongue. The tongue is cooked off and then cut into wonderful large batons like so, which break off like that. And then in between that, we're going to put our layers of foie gras, so we've got this lovely chessboard effect running through the terrine. So foie gras laid on there like so, 2 minutes cuisson. Then again, another layer of tongue, which has been cooked off in a very similar way to the ham, and then peeled, put down. We've stopped adding sweetbreads to this particular terrine because a lot of people don't really enjoy eating sweetbreads cold. I love sweetbreads, and it didn't really go down very well. We weren't selling many of this particular terrine, so therefore we were using them and wasting quite a few of them. So now we've taken the sweetbreads out, we're selling a lot more, and for some unknown reason, a lot of ladies do not enjoy eating sweetbreads. It's a shame because they have a wonderful texture, and once they've been lovely and beautifully roasted, it gives a lovely, nice flavour. In between the layers, we're just going to lightly season now before we add the stock. Be careful not to put too much salt on there, because don't forget the ham is still naturally salted. Sometimes in the summer when we've got a ham knuckle terrine, we could put a puree of peas through the centre and add some of the brine inside the puree of peas to set it nice and firm. Sometimes also we have it with broad beans in the centre, and there's even been known sometimes throughout the winter to put some lovely stunning Savoy cabbage which has been lightly braised through the stock, and that gives it a nice contrast of the richness of the ham, the sort of rustic feel of the cabbage. So now that we've established our layers running down like so, lightly press it so we've got no gaps, and then finally I'm going to put this other layer very carefully and just using the ham hock, just open up the fibres and place that inside. The important part of putting this together is to remove all the sinew from outside the ham and layer it in a way that it almost forms a wonderful shelf. So as it starts to stack up, you've got the continuity of all the lovely colours, and there's a nice flat basis. One of the important factors of putting this together is to identify the strength of your stock, your brine, and it's important before we set it and put it into the fridge, thinking this is all beautifully arranged. Then do a tester, take out a ladle of your stock, put it inside a cup and set that in the fridge, and that will determine the strength of the jelly. And If that's not done and the jelly's incredibly weak and it doesn't set as strong as you want it, coming to slice it and serve it, then it will just disintegrate and end up in a mess. Strapped up all the bean bags around the back of the battery. Well, every schoolboy's dream, you know, when they're playing under 12 or under 14 years of age football, is to become a professional footballer. And at a very early age, you know, 13, 14, I was spotted by a scout for Arsenal football team. And so I was being monitored from 14 to 16. 5 minutes away, double 12, Samaj. About a year later, I got spotted in an FA Youth Cup match playing for Oxford United by a scout for Glasgow Rangers. 3 ready, 2 quail. And so I gave everything up and moved back up to Scotland. 8 months later, I find myself out on my ear. 3 lamb, 1 grill, 1 magray. There was 10 guys up for, 3 apprentices. I walked out there absolutely gutted, really, I suppose. I don't really like thinking about that particular day because it's a day I always call Black Monday, because it was just the day when, I thought my whole sort of situation, my whole life had changed, and there I was being built up to sign. And whilst there were photographers downstairs, taking notes from other guys and their other parents, I had this huge failure smacked on my forehead. Bit more colour. Throughout training at football, my part-time job was sort of washing up and making, salads in this country house hotel, and I was quite excited about, the activity in the kitchen. And so I got offered a part-time college course where I had to work 1 day a week. That means I had to go out and survive and work in a country house hotel 5-6 days a week. Put my head down, concentrated for the next 12 months, qualified with flying colours, and thought, well, here we go, this is the second bite of the cherry. This was a very basic country house hotel. They still had things like tornado rossini, I can remember the menu off by heart, minestrone soup. All the vegetables were done up in a Sunday lunch and put in a bain-marie and left there stewing for 3 or 4 hours. And as far as I was concerned, as a 19-year-old, this was serious cooking. So the first place I wanted to head to was London, and I got a job in the Mayfair Hotel in Berkeley Square. They're just opening a new Crystal Room, a banqueting hall, and it was a 250-seater. And for this function of this outlet, they need to take on commies, and I got taken on as a second commie, grade 4, I think, on I think it was about £85 a week. First job on that Monday morning, again another Monday morning, was making mint sauce for 300. Where I asked the chef, fresh mint, and do we preserve it? And he swore at me. He said, no, you take the concentrate underneath the sink. So I went to the sink, I got this concentrate, and I smelled it, and Christ, it stinks. And so I started pouring all this in, and I thought, Christ, this stuff's foaming, what's going on here? So I started adding more vinegar. And I picked up the detergent and not the mint concentrate. So that was my real first start, I suppose. I've never forgotten it. 2 drinks du jour, 2 salads du jour, get ready. Working for 300 covers a night, I got no excitement at that. And so, thankfully, I remember sat in a staff canteen, which is still there now, and reading this article on a guy called Marco White, who opened a restaurant called Harvey's. He'd just been open 3 months, and the style of the food, and his sort of philosophy and his feel, and this guy's energy, was seriously attractive. So I sort of phoned the guy up, I suppose. I think it was about 12:30 at night I phoned him. Told him that, I wasn't very happy in the job I had. I wasn't interested in cooking for 400 people. I really want to learn how to cook fine, controlled food with a serious palate. And that's how it started, really.
Okay, risotto of clams, risotto of baby clams. One of the most exciting ways ever to make a risotto. Very interesting because we use a base formula where we blanch our rice for 6 minutes beforehand. We thicken it with crab meat. We let that down with a little stock. And we use this base, whether we're making a risotto of wild mushrooms, whether you want to add some lobster there, or even if you want to go to the extent of adding some wonderful sautéed scallops. So this is our base, and this morning we're making a risotto of clams. First of all, we're going to cook the clams. And the important part about cooking clams is doing it quickly. Very, very hot pan, No oil, nothing in there, bar the clams, touch of white wine, thyme and bay leaf. Clams straight into a very hot pan, thyme, bay leaf, and then white wine on, and then lid. That's important because that's going to help cook them even quicker. If we had no lid, then all the heat will evaporate. Gentle shake, mixing around, almost like a pressure cooker. As you can see, it's bubbling. It's reducing the wine quickly, and then quick stir. Lid back on. This is important to cook coquillage, mussels, baby clams, winkles, exactly the same way. Quickly, effectively, shells open immediately, and then take them out just 30 seconds after the shells start to open. Okay, they've just started to open up, and we're going to take them out and straight into the conical strainer very, very quickly. Now we're just removing them from the shell and taking off the beards. Make sure this process is done whilst the clams are hot, because it's a lot easier to remove from the shell. And if you left them to cool down in the shell, then they become obviously difficult, and they almost set inside the shell, their coquillage. Now, the cooking liquor, I've just put back on the stove to reduce. And that's it there. That's the combination of the juices inside the clams, the white wine, the thyme, and the bay leaf, and leave that to cool down. And then I'm going to almost steep my clams back inside. It's important to leave it to cool down. If I put them in there now, then the clams itself would overcook. As you can see, they're very soft, very supple, and almost undercooked. And that's the most important part, keeping them almost raw, because we want to finish them in the stock. The exciting part about this risotto is keeping it controlled. When you're making a risotto, it's live. It's a process that you can't overcook. And as a safety policy, we blanch our rice. And because we're making a risotto of clams today, we blanched the rice in fish stock. Brought the fish stock up to boil for 6 minutes, put the rice in there, and then laid it on a tray, cool down. That's very important, because too many people overcook rice and risotto, and it's always a big problem, and it's not very pleasant to have this rice that has exploded. You've got to take care, cook it properly, and treat it as if it's live. You know, it's active, and you have a cut-off point that you must always remember. So 6 minutes into boiling fish stock, out, laid onto a tray, and then left to cool down, and we've got this wonderful base of a risotto ready to go. So into the pan first, some fish stock. Bring that up to the boil. Rice in, and we need that stock boiling in order to open up the rice grains again. Now, if we put it in and the stock is not boiling, then it won't take the mascarpone, the crab meat, and the whipped cream. So we need to really open up that rice in order to let it absorb our texture, impart the flavour with the crab, and continue to search for this lovely velvet, smooth, creamy textured risotto. So now we're starting to work the risotto by just opening up the grains of rice. Be generous with the stock, properly moisten it with your rice, constantly turning around, and then if it gets too dry, just again wet it at the sides. And this is where the fun starts, because this is where we've really got to start taking care of it. For the garnish, I've left half the clams out, which are going to go inside the risotto 2 minutes before we're ready to serve. And then here, I've mixed the clams with the olive oil, the juices that they were cooked in, lightly seasoned them, and just left them almost to marinate. Now the rice has started to open up again, it's ready to start taking the crab meat. First of all, I'm going to put my brown crab meat. We don't use enough of this. This is so understated, and this is our almost, we treat this as a butter, a cream butter, but of course it's brown crab meat that's been passed through a sieve, very, very fine, and we're going to use that to thicken our risotto. 2 nice, generous spoons, combined it with the rice and the stock, and now you can see the actual risotto starting to take shape. It's gone dark in colour, which is nice. It's got that wonderful shellfish aroma. And if we don't pass the brown crab meat through the sieve, then it will become lumpy. There's nothing worse than eating a risotto that's incredibly lumpy. And this is what we were talking about earlier, about working the risotto. Constantly turning, evolving the rice, maximising on our flavours by stirring continuously at the bottom, preventing it from sticking, of course, which is very important, and then just cleaning the sides round with your maries. There's nothing worse when you're making a risotto and all this gunge and this caked food is stuck at the side of your pan. Keep it neat, keep it tidy, because that's the most important part about this end result. Working with it, it's live, and we've got about 4 or 5 minutes to get this thing to perfection. So, constantly working your brown crab meat in, bring it up to the boil, and just letting it reduce. And by reducing, of course, the rice is absorbing that wonderful, creamy brown crab meat flavour. Now, we're going to put in our flaked white crab meat, and just loosely, this wonderful Cornish crab, generous with that because, of course, again, this is going to be used as another thicken agent, in like so, and then work at it. Let it break down. This crab has been shelled, it's been sieved through our fingers to prevent, obviously, little fragments of shell, and again, tidy around the side of your pan. You can see it's starting to come together. It's got a wonderful smell, this beautiful, fresh, brown crab meat. And we're just breaking down the white now, and as you can see, it's starting this lovely, velvet, creamy, textured risotto. Right, from there, cleaning the pan around the outside all the time, I'm now going to add one of my favourite ingredients when always making a risotto of shellfish, scallops, lobster, whatever, is mascarpone cheese. And this is a very fine, creamed Italian cheese. And this is going to add a wonderful lightness to the risotto, make it incredibly soft, and a very smooth finish. Again, never boil the risotto with the mascarpone cheese in there. If we do boil this risotto with mascarpone cheese, then it will cause it to split. And having come this far, the last thing we want, of course, is this risotto to start splitting and looking almost curdled. So, very carefully, constantly turning around the pan, removing all the excess crab from the sides, and working that mascarpone cheese into this lovely, creamy risotto. And this is great for large parties because the mise en place has been done. Your workload has been done beforehand. The rice has been blanched, your crab is ready, your stock is ready, and it's a case of just putting it together. And from start to finish, it should take between 6 and 8 minutes. Right, now that's starting to thicken. It's got this wonderful, nice, glossy texture. There's enough crab in there. The rice hasn't started to overcook. I'm going to finish it with a tablespoon of 3/4 whipped cream. And then I'm just going to almost whip that in to the risotto. This will help slow down the cooking process, reduce the risotto down in temperature, and add this wonderful velvet, smooth, creamy flavour. So, as you know, so far I haven't seasoned anything. It's important never to season a risotto at the beginning, always at the end. Because if we start to season it at the beginning, we're taking into account the fact that with clams are heavily salted, so be very, very careful. So, and of course, finally, just to give it that proper seasoning, we will use salt, but we'll season the risotto, as always, just like they do in Italy, with Parmesan cheese. Freshly grated Parmesan cheese, very generous. Again, make sure that goes in at the end because we don't want this overcooked flavour of Parmesan. Fold it in, and then again, continue to work around the side of the pan, cleaning as we go, and then making sure that cheese is almost drying up the excess liquid inside the risotto and constantly working at it. Some herbs. I've got some beautiful fine julienne, fine slice of basil, which is very fragrant. And now, at the very end, I'm going to incorporate my clams because they need about 2 or 3 more minutes to cook. and it's important that they go in at this stage and folded in to the crab. Check the seasoning now, and then we're ready to serve. So out of the pan, into the plate. As you can see, it's nice and velvety. It's got a wonderful gloss. It's just starting to collapse in the bowl. It's smooth, it's very well textured, and it smells absolutely delicious. Just a very gentle little shake, just to bring the risotto down. It's nice and runny. It's very, very creamy. And then finally, I'm just going to take my little garnish clams and just dot these around on top of the risotto. As you can see, these have been marinated inside their own juices. And we're just going to very generously sprinkle these on top of the risotto, and then nicely just glaze with a little bit of this juice, which is a natural coquillage stock with the white wine, the thyme and the bay leaf. We've garnished it with olive oil. Just going to finish it again very finely and just cut that rice, the richness of the risotto, with some olive oil, sprinkle it on top. And here we have that risotto of clams with beautiful fresh crab.
Voici donc here is the cheese board for you. Donc we can maybe make a nice tasting plate, an assortment of different cheeses. We have a cheese board made of sheep cheeses, goat cheeses, and the cow cheeses for the rest. The hard cheeses here, blue cheeses, and a few soft cheeses. We can maybe start with something like a goat cheese, something fresh, like a cœur poitevin. This one coming from the west of France. Very mild, very tasty. After we might follow with something like maybe a sheep cheese from the Pyrenees, which is called Petit Basque, this one. We can follow with maybe a cheese from another region, le Saint-Félicien. Saint-Félicien, coming from the Rhône Valley, is a very soft, very tasty, smooth cheese. Something absolutely fantastic to follow with. After we can grow in taste a little bit. Growing in taste with something like a Livaro. Livaro, very well-known cheese from Normandy. It's a cow cheese. And we could finish with another very well-known cheese, which is a Roquefort, Roquefort Papillon, donc coming from the Rouergue, the exact middle of France.